touched on a lot of things. Let me go back and see if we can focus it on down to some specific thing. Are you confident that you understand the full extent of the fiscal crisis at this point?
I don't think any of us do, and I'll give you an example. I understand that DSS has moved a document to the governor that says that they're going to need $600 to $700 million more to cover our Medicaid bill next year, and that they currently have a shortfall estimate of $140 million in the current year. None of that is included in what's coming down. Now, remember that that's probably reimbursed at least 50% by the federal government, and if the ARA program or the stimulus program is extended, and I think this is one area where it might be extended, that could be as high as 63% for certain expenditures, but it still represents quite a large delta of 225 to $350 million of additional expenditure that neither you nor I were thinking of just a few days ago. So no, I don't think we know the full extent. And that's why, by the way, I want to be very clear, that's why I'm not making promises.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Your opponent has taken the pledge of no new taxes. He believes he can find $2 billion worth of savings in the budget and take care of the other $1.5 billion. I'm not going to ask you to comment on that. What I am going to ask you, have you, in your mind, at any point here, come to some sort of understanding that X amount is possible through efficiencies, cuts, etc., and then how do you deal with that other layer that you need to get to?
Well, listen, once I won the primary, I put teams of people together to start going through this stuff because, there's presumably a 50-50 chance I might be governor, and there's a precious little time between November 3rd and January 5th, and only 30 days more to February 5th when you have to present the budget. And then everyone who's viewing this should understand that the governor is now collecting budgets from her departments, agencies, and commissions, and is obligated to give a transitional budget to the incoming governor no later than November 15th. So I already have people working on this. And I think we can find savings, but I'm not sitting here telling you that I think there are sufficient savings that I can find in that period of time, which would represent, at $3.4 billion, 17% of the projected budget. I'm not making that promise. What I'm saying is I'm making a promise that I'm going to do my best to get as much savings as I possibly can. But I'm not aware of a modern governmental agency that can be stripped of 17% of its projected expenditure without causing serious damage. And what I have said is I will not further damage what is already a weakened safety net for people who are most dependent on state government. That part of state government's actually taken the brunt of the cuts over the last few years. And I will not cut the ECS funding by the 14.6% that the governor has laid a trap for. So that's what, if you wonder why I can't say what would be politically easy to say, yeah, well, I'm gonna promise you that I'm not gonna do that, to raise taxes or to look at revenue. I'm not doing it because I can't do it. Because it would be wrong. Now let me say one other thing. The guy I'm running against has some pretty fuzzy math. He acknowledges that the deficit's 3.5. He says he can get to $2 million in cutting, and then he pretends that that's a balanced budget. What I really think is underway here is that he plans a massive shift of expenses from state government to local government, because it's the only way to do it. That represents about $2.4 billion of the state budget, that transference of money. Let's assume he wanted to cut that by $1 billion or $1.4 billion. Let's use the $1.4 billion. I haven't done a Norwich comparison, but that would double the taxes in Hartford on a $200,000 house, and it would raise by 50% on a $200,000 house the taxes in New Haven. Otherwise, I don't know what he's talking about. He also made a statement that the first thing you do is you don't increase expenses next year. That's all well and good, and I think we shouldn't increase expenses any more than we have to. But remember, we've already operated government 1 year in a row with less money than the year before. And we've accommodated increases in Medicaid expenses. With longer-term unemployment and people falling off systems of care provided by their employer, Medicaid bills are going through the roof. I just gave you a for instance that I just learned of with respect to DSS. So there are minefields out there.
All right, let me play devil's advocate with you here for a minute. In previous discussions we've had, you've mentioned that what needs to be done in terms of revenue is to take a hard, close look at where Connecticut stands in relationships to its neighbors, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York.
And New Jersey. Those are the states that we compete with most directly.
Okay. Why then is it unfair for someone to suggest that because of that statement, that you're looking for ways and places where you can increase taxes as long as you stay under what the other guys are charging?
Yeah, you know, I suppose that, you know, you can, in politics you can say whatever you want to say. What I've said is that every tax and every major regulation affecting business needs to be benchmarked. We need to understand what are those other states most immediate to our competition network. What are they doing? You know, and I know some of the answers to that. I mean, for instance, Massachusetts has a 5.5% cap on income tax. And so it looks like their cap on income tax is 1% less than ours at 6.5%. But they have a 12% capital gains tax. So, you know, we're okay with them. We're lower than New York. We're lower than New Jersey in income taxes. Income taxes, we might be in pretty good shape. And it might, if we had to raise revenue, maybe there's a little room on that side with respect to very wealthy individuals. You know, I got to be honest. I've got to know that. We have to measure every one of those taxes and the impact. Not because I want to raise taxes. Listen, anybody running for governor who tells you they want to raise taxes or that's what they're going to do, it would be foolish. All I'm saying is I can't promise people something that I'm worried that I can't deliver. Because I have made it very clear that I won't put mentally ill people out on the street. I won't take health care away from senior citizens. So, you know, I'm going to protect that safety net. If that safety net requires some revenue give back, closing loopholes, or some other structure, I don't want to do it, but I can't eliminate that as a possibility because I will not put sick people on the streets of our urban areas. We've been doing that for 20 years.
Again, playing devil's advocate, and I know your opponent is making this a campaign issue, but I'm going to ask you if you concede that there is a legitimacy to this concern, and that is, and I'll tell you that I think that there is, from people that I've talked with, voters that I've talked with, that there is some worry on people's parts about what a Democratic governor means with a Democratic legislature.
Hey, I'm worried about it.
Okay.
I mean, listen, you know, I was mayor of the city of Stamford for 14 years, and this is what people need to understand. And over that 14-year period of time, the population of Stamford increased by 12,000 people, it is estimated. We're waiting for the final numbers. And I downsized city government by 8.4%, 127 positions. And none of that downsizing occurred in the last couple of years. We weren't one of the cities that laid a lot of people off. I know how to manage. And I'm telling you, I think parts of government are bloated. I'm telling you, I believe we can create efficiencies, another efficiency, the way we buy energy. I think there's about a $50 million savings if we changed how we buy energy for our own consumption as a state government. And that's besides the point that I want to look at the general price of energy, electricity in the state of Connecticut and get rid of some of the additional costs that our state government is adding to it. So I understand that people have that worry, but you know, let's be fair here. I'm a Democrat, he's a Republican, he's going to say whatever he thinks is his best argument. His best argument is, hey, don't have the same party be in control of the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. Does that mean we should never have a Democratic governor? And by the way, should we not elect a Democratic governor who actually has a track record of successfully running a $500 million corporation, as opposed to running a corporation into the ground and filing bankruptcy? Because that's what he did. And that's the difference between the two of us. And I have the body of experience. I had to negotiate those contracts. You know, people say, well, you have a lot of labor support. That labor support is late to the table. It was nowhere 4 years ago and precious little of it earlier this year. Do they want me over Foley? Yeah, because they believe I'm a better manager. And if someone's going to lead us out of this thing, it's going to be me. But a lot of those folks didn't support me in the past, in part because I held the line as mayor. You know, when I was elected in 1995, people came to me and said, you've got to give the unions more than they got by other people. And I said, well, how can I do that? I have an obligation to the people of the city of Stamford to run this place efficiently. Tell me, if you want a COLA in your pension, tell me how much more you're going to contribute for it. Well, we're not going to contribute for it. You should just give it to us. Well, I never gave it to them. I never gave it to them. You know, so tell me a Democratic mayor who didn't do that. Tell me a Democratic mayor who actually lowered the number of city-side employees over a 14-year period of time while increasing population by 12,000 people. There's just a world of difference between myself and my style of leadership and some other Democrats. I'm a Democrat because socially I'm a Democrat. I believe that we should be less intrusive in people's lives. It's one of the reasons that I supported treating people or allowing people to define their own relationship, either in civil union or marriage. That's where I have total buy-in. Where I don't have total buy-in is this idea that we can spend future generations' money. And by the way, that's something that both Republicans and Democrats are doing. Final point on this.